Admiral Kexthor stood on the command deck of the massive ship called Dominion's Edge. The ship was so big that it could hold 100 smaller ships inside it. He looked at the blue planet Earth through the giant window. His 4 eyes studied every detail of the world they were about to take over. 100 years. That was how long the Zephyrian people had been getting ready for this day. 100 years of watching, learning, and planning. Kexthor remembered when he was young, and his grandfather told him stories about the great invasion that would come someday. Now that day was here, and he was the one leading it. The command room was full of screens showing information about Earth. There were pictures of human cities, their weapons, and their armies. Everything looked so simple and weak. The humans still used guns that shot metal bullets. They had bombs that exploded with fire and smoke. Their fastest planes could barely fly faster than sound. It was almost funny how backward they were. Kexthor walked to the main screen that showed Earth's military bases. There were dots all over the planet marking where humans kept their weapons. The biggest bases were in places called America, Russia, and China. The humans seemed to think these bases would protect them. They had no idea what was coming. "Sir, all ships are ready," said Commander Veltar, his second in command. She had been working on this invasion plan for 30 years. Every detail had been checked and checked again. "Show me the fleet," Kexthor said. The screen changed to show space around their ship. 300 Zephyrian ships floated in perfect formation. Each ship was deadly and beautiful, with weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. The smallest ships were still bigger than anything humans had ever built. The largest ones could crack planets in half. Kexthor smiled with satisfaction. This fleet had taken 50 years to build. Every ship used the best technology the Zephyrians had developed over thousands of years. Their weapons could shoot beams of pure energy. Their shields could stop any attack. Their ships could appear and disappear like ghosts. "What do our spies tell us about human defenses?" Kexthor asked. Veltar pulled up another screen. It showed human soldiers with their simple weapons and vehicles. They have something they call nuclear weapons, but they are very slow and easy to stop. Their missiles take many minutes to reach their targets. Our shields can block them easily. Kexthor nodded. The Zephyrians had been watching Earth's wars for decades. They saw how humans fought each other in what they called World War I and World War II. The humans used simple guns, basic tanks, and slow airplanes. Even their newest weapons were like toys compared to Zephyrian technology. "Their internet system shows us everything," Veltar continued. "They post videos of their military exercises online. We have studied every weapon, every strategy, every defense they have. There are no surprises left." This was true. For the past 20 years, humans had been putting everything on their global network called the Internet. They shared pictures of their weapons, videos of their soldiers training, and even the locations of their secret bases. It was like they wanted to be invaded. Kexthor remembered the war games they had played to prepare for this invasion. The Zephyrian military had practiced attacking Earth thousands of times using computer simulations. Every possible human response had been tested. No matter what the humans tried to do, the Zephyrians won in less than 1 day. The longest any simulation had lasted was 18 hours, and that was only because they pretended the humans had twice as many weapons as they actually had. In most games, Earth surrendered in less than 6 hours once they saw how powerful the Zephyrian fleet was. "Sir, we have messages from the other fleet commanders," said the communication officer. "All ships report ready status." Kexthor looked at the list of ship commanders on his screen. Each one was an expert who had trained for decades for this moment. Captain Mordek commanded the assault ships that would attack military bases. Captain Zinara led the ships that would capture major cities. Captain Hexlon controlled the ships that would destroy any human spacecraft that tried to escape. Every commander had studied human behavior and psychology. They knew that humans were emotional creatures who would panic when they saw superior technology. The plan was simple: appear suddenly over major cities, show overwhelming force, and wait for the humans to surrender. It had worked on 17 other primitive worlds. "Show me the target cities," Kexthor ordered. The screen displayed a map of Earth with red dots marking their primary targets: New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. All the major human population centers would see Zephyrian ships at the same time. The shock would be so great that human governments would have no choice but to give up immediately. Kexthor walked to the weapons control station. The officer there was checking the power levels of their main guns. Each weapon on Dominion's edge could destroy a human city in one shot. The ship had 47 such weapons, plus hundreds of smaller ones. Energy levels at maximum, sir, the weapons officer reported. All targeting systems ready. Good, remember, we want them to surrender, not die. Only fire if they attack first. This was important. The Zephyrians needed humans alive to work in their mines and factories. Dead humans were useless. The plan was to scare them into giving up without a fight. Kexthor thought about his own planet, Zephyros Prime. It was a beautiful world with purple skies and silver oceans. Soon Earth would belong to the Zephyrian Empire. Just like Zephyros Prime and the 17 other worlds they controlled, humans would learn to serve their new masters, just like all the other conquered species had learned. The Admiral looked at the time display. In exactly 1 hour, the invasion would begin. 100 years of preparation would finally pay off. His name would be remembered forever as the commander who brought Earth into the Zephyrian Empire. Sir, incoming message from Supreme Command, announced the communication officer. The main screen showed the face of High Chancellor Kek Mori, the supreme leader of all Zephyrian forces. Her ancient face looked stern and proud. Admiral Kexthor, she said in a voice that commanded respect. The Empire watches with great interest. Bring us Earth quickly and cleanly. Show these humans the power of Zephyrian technology, and they will submit like all the others before them. Yes, Supreme Chancellor. Earth will be ours before this day ends. The connection ended, and Kexthor felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. But he also felt confident. How could he fail? The Zephyrians had better weapons, better ships, and better technology. They had studied human weaknesses for an entire century. They knew everything about Earth's defenses. The humans had no idea what was about to hit them. All ships prepare for final approach, Kexthor commanded. Today we claim Earth for the Empire. The 300 ships began moving toward the blue planet. After 100 years of waiting and planning, the invasion of Earth was about to begin. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly on schedule. 300 deadly ships appeared in Earth's sky like a nightmare made real. The massive vessels blocked out the sun over major cities around the world. In New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other places, people looked up to see alien ships hanging in the air above them. Admiral Kexthor watched the deployment from his command chair. Every ship was exactly where it should be. The formation was perfect, designed to show maximum intimidation while covering all major population centers. Phase 1 of the invasion was complete. All ships report successful arrival, Commander Veltar announced. No human resistance detected. Kexthor nodded with satisfaction. The humans were probably too shocked to respond yet. He had seen this before on other worlds. The appearance of an advanced alien fleet usually caused several minutes of stunned silence before the panic began. Begin first contact protocol, he ordered. The communication systems activated, sending a signal to every radio, television, and internet connection on Earth. The message would reach every human on the planet at the same time. Kexthor had recorded it himself in 17 different human languages. People of Earth, his voice boomed across the planet. I am Admiral Kexthor of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world is now under our control. You have one choice. Surrender immediately and accept Zephyrian rule or watch your cities burn. You have 30 minutes to respond. The message was simple and direct. It had worked perfectly on the 17 other worlds the Zephyrians had conquered. Usually, the local governments contacted them within 10 minutes, begging to discuss surrender terms. Kexthor switched his screen to monitor human communication networks. This was always the most interesting part. He enjoyed watching primitive civilizations realize how outmatched they were. First came silence, then panic, then desperate attempts to organize resistance, and finally acceptance of defeat. But something was wrong. Instead of panic, the human networks were exploding with activity of a completely different kind. Millions of messages were being sent, but they were not cries for help or government orders. They were something else entirely. Sir, said the communication officer, looking confused, the humans are laughing. Laughing? Kexthor stood up from his chair. Show me. The main screen filled with human internet activity. There were images everywhere, but not the kind Kexthor expected. Instead of pictures of terrified crowds or emergency broadcasts, he saw something called memes. Humans were making jokes about the Zephyrian fleet. One image showed a Zephyrian ship with text that said, "Aliens travel millions of miles to invade Earth. Still can't find parking." Another showed Admiral Kexthor's broadcast with the words, "When you spend 100 years preparing for invasion but forget to check if Earth has Wi-Fi." "Sir, there are millions of these joke images," the communication officer reported. "They are spreading faster than we can track them." Kexthor felt a cold sensation in his stomach. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. On other worlds, populations cowered in fear when they saw Zephyrian ships. They certainly did not make fun of them. "Maybe they do not understand the situation," Commander Veltar suggested. "Perhaps we should demonstrate our power." Before Kexthor could respond, his tactical officer spoke up. "Sir, we are detecting movement from human military bases." Finally, Kexthor said, "Show me their desperate preparations." The screen changed to show military installations around the world. But what Kexthor saw made no sense. Human forces were mobilizing, but not in panic. They moved with calm efficiency, like they had been expecting this exact situation. At a base in Colorado, human soldiers were loading equipment into vehicles with no signs of fear or confusion. At a naval base in Japan, ships were leaving port in perfect formation. At an Air Force base in England, pilots were walking to their aircraft like they were going to routine training exercises. "Sir, this is unusual," the tactical officer said. "Our intelligence indicated that human military response would be chaotic and disorganized. But they appear to be following predetermined plans." Kexthor studied the display more carefully. The human military response was indeed strangely organized. It was as if they had been planning for this exact scenario. But that was impossible. The Zephyrians had been watching Earth for 100 years. They would have noticed if humans were preparing for alien invasion. "Perhaps they have been preparing for war with each other," Veltar suggested. "Their military might be responding to us the same way they would respond to another human nation." That made sense. Humans were always fighting among themselves. Maybe their militaries were just following standard procedures for any unknown threat. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth," the communication officer announced. "Put it on screen," Kexthor ordered. Finally, the human government was ready to discuss surrender. But the face that appeared on screen was not what he expected. Instead of a frightened political leader, he saw a calm woman in a military uniform. She was sitting behind a desk with flags from several human nations behind her. "Good afternoon, Admiral Kexthor," the woman said politely. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Thank you for your surrender ultimatum. We have reviewed your terms and must respectfully decline." Kexthor's four eyes widened. "United Earth Defense Force? Our intelligence shows no such organization." Admiral Chen smiled. "Your intelligence is about 30 years out of date, I'm afraid. We've been expecting you for quite some time now. We know you've been watching us, and frankly, we've been watching you too." This was impossible. The Zephyrians had the most advanced surveillance technology in the galaxy. They had been monitoring Earth continuously for decades. There was no way humans could have detected them. "You are bluffing," Kexthor said. "Your technology is primitive. You cannot possibly have been aware of our presence, Admiral." Chen replied, still smiling. "Did you really think a species that can broadcast memes across a global network in seconds couldn't figure out how to detect alien spy ships?" Kexthor felt something he had never experienced in battle before: doubt. The human admiral seemed far too calm for someone whose planet was being invaded. And what did she mean about detecting spy ships? "Sir," his tactical officer called out urgently, "I'm reading energy signatures that don't match our intelligence reports. There are structures on Earth that we never detected before." "What kind of structures?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to be underground installations with very advanced shielding. They're powering up all over the planet." Admiral Chen was still on the screen, watching Kexthor with an expression that looked almost sympathetic. "Admiral, I want you to know that we appreciate the heads up about your invasion. 30 minutes is quite generous. Most species only give us 5 or 10 minutes warning." "Most species?" Kexthor repeated. "Oh yes, you're not the first civilization to try this. Though I must say you've been the most polite about it. Usually they just start shooting." Kexthor's mind was racing. Nothing was going according to plan. The humans were not behaving like a primitive species facing superior technology. They were acting like they had been through this before. "Sir," Commander Veltar whispered, "perhaps we should begin the attack immediately. Clearly these humans are more dangerous than we thought." But before Kexthor could give the order, alarms began sounding throughout his ship. Red lights flashed as his crew scrambled to their stations. "Sir, we have a problem," the tactical officer announced. "We're detecting multiple contacts approaching our formation." "Human aircraft?" Kexthor asked. "Negative, sir. These contacts are different. They're moving faster than anything in our database. And sir, they appear to be using technology we don't recognize." Admiral Chen was still smiling on the screen. "Admiral Kexthor, I'm going to give you the same 30 minutes you gave us. Power down your weapons, prepare for boarding, and surrender peacefully. This is your only warning." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kexthor realized that he might have made a terrible mistake. The first sign that something was very wrong came at exactly 2 minutes into the 30-minute countdown. Kexthor's tactical officer started shouting reports so fast that they blended together into a stream of panic. "Sir, contact bearing 270. Closing fast. Sir, multiple contacts from all directions. Sir, they're inside our formation." Kexthor spun around to look at the tactical display, and what he saw made his blood freeze. Dozens of small craft were appearing between his ships like ghosts materializing from nothing. They had somehow gotten past every sensor, every detection system, every early warning device the Zephyrians had. "Impossible," Commander Veltar breathed. "Our sensors show nothing. How are they there?" The answer came immediately as explosions bloomed around 3 of Kexthor's destroyers. But these were not the crude explosive weapons the Zephyrians expected from humans. These were precise energy bursts that seemed to target specific systems on each ship. "Damage report," Kexthor shouted. "Ships Razor Wind, Darkstar, and Blood Moon report weapon systems offline," came the reply. "No hull damage, but all offensive capabilities disabled." Kexthor stared at the display in shock. Whatever had hit his ships had surgically removed their ability to fight without destroying them. The precision required for such attacks was beyond anything he had ever seen. "Sir, more contacts appearing throughout the fleet." The tactical screen was now swarming with red dots representing unknown craft. They moved in ways that defied physics as Kexthor understood it, changing direction instantly, accelerating to impossible speeds, then stopping dead in space. "Return fire. All ships engage the enemy." But as his weapons officers tried to target the attacking craft, they discovered another horrifying truth. Their targeting systems were not working properly. The enemy ships seemed to exist in multiple places at once, their true positions impossible to determine. "Sir, our quantum targeting arrays are being jammed," the weapons officer reported. "We cannot lock onto the enemy craft." At minute 4, things got much worse. Kexthor watched in growing horror as his ship's own computer systems began turning against him. Warning lights flashed across every control panel as the Dominion's Edge started disobeying direct orders. "Navigation is not responding, sir," the helm officer called out. "The ship is turning on its own." "Engineering reports power fluctuations in all systems," another officer added. "It's like something is rewriting our control codes." Kexthor realized with dawning terror what was happening. The humans were not just attacking with superior weapons. They were taking control of Zephyrian ships from the inside, turning their own technology against them. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our computer systems use quantum encryption. Nothing should be able to break it." Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen again, and she was no longer smiling. Her expression was serious and focused, like a professional doing a difficult job. "Admiral, you're experiencing what we call cyber warfare," she explained calmly. "For the past hour while you were preparing your invasion, our specialists have been mapping your computer networks. Your quantum encryption is quite good, but it has a fundamental flaw." "What flaw?" Kexthor asked, though he dreaded the answer. "It assumes that the attackers are using conventional computing methods. We stopped using those about 50 years ago." At minute 6, half of Kexthor's fleet was either disabled or fighting their own compromised systems. Ships were firing on each other as their weapon systems fell under human control. Others spun helplessly through space as their engines shut down without warning. But the worst was yet to come. "Sir, new contacts on long-range sensors," the tactical officer announced in a voice filled with disbelief. "Multiple large vessels approaching from the outer system." "How large?" Kexthor asked, though he suspected he did not want to know. "Sir, they're bigger than our dreadnoughts. Much bigger." The main screen switched to show the approaching vessels, and Kexthor felt his remaining confidence crumble into dust. The ships moving toward them were not just large. They were massive beyond anything the Zephyrians had ever built, and their design was completely unfamiliar, using technology that seemed decades ahead of anything in Zephyrian databases. "Where did those ships come from?" Commander Veltar whispered. Admiral Chen answered from the communication screen. "They were always there, Admiral. We just had them disguised as space debris and asteroid fragments. We've gotten quite good at hiding things from observers over the years." At Minute 8, the true scope of the disaster became clear. The approaching human vessels were not alone. Ships were decloaking throughout the solar system, revealing themselves to be advanced warships that had been invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Earth was not a primitive world with simple defenses. It was a fortress protected by technology that made the Zephyrian fleet look ancient. "Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Mordek," the communication officer reported. "His assault group is completely disabled. All ships are under enemy control." "Captain Zinara reports similar status," came another report. "Her city assault fleet cannot move or fight. Captain Hexlon's interception force is—" The officer paused, checking his instruments. "Sir, they're gone. Complete loss of contact." Kexthor slumped in his command chair, watching his invasion fleet fall apart around him. 100 years of preparation destroyed in less than 10 minutes. But how? How had they been so wrong about human capabilities? "Admiral Chen," he said into the communicator, "I do not understand. Our intelligence showed that humans are primitive. Your weapons are crude. Your technology is basic. How is this possible?" For the first time, Admiral Chen looked almost sad. "Admiral, you've been watching our entertainment industry. Movies, television shows, video games. We make those to relax and have fun. What you never saw was what we actually use when someone threatens our home. Entertainment. Your spies watched our war movies and thought they were documentaries. You saw our military parades and assumed they showed our best weapons. You observed our international conflicts and believed that represented our full capability." She paused, then added gently, "We let you watch those things because we wanted you to underestimate us." At minute 10, human boarding pods began attaching to Zephyrian ships throughout the fleet. But these were not violent boardings. The humans moved with calm professionalism, securing disabled vessels and providing medical aid to injured crew members. "Sir, boarding parties have reached decks 7 through 12, his security chief reported. "But they're not acting hostile. They seem to be helping our wounded." Kexthor stared at the security monitors showing human soldiers in advanced armor moving through his ship. They were indeed helping Zephyrian crew members, providing medical treatment and ensuring everyone was safe. At minute 11, Admiral Chen made one final announcement. "All Zephyrian vessels. This is Admiral Chen. Your fleet is now completely under our control. We are prepared to accept your surrender. Any crew members requiring medical attention will be treated immediately. You have fought bravely, but this battle is over." At minute 12, Admiral Kexthor did something he had never imagined he would do. He reached for the communication controls with shaking hands and opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All Zephyrian ships, this is Admiral Kexthor," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "I hereby order the surrender of all forces under my command. Do not resist the human boarders. They are here to help us." The 12-minute war, as historians would later call it, was over. The Zephyrian Empire had just suffered its first military defeat in over 1,000 years, and it had taken the humans less time than most Zephyrians spent eating breakfast. As human medics entered his command center to check on his crew, Kexthor could only wonder what other surprises Earth had been hiding. Admiral Kexthor sat in what had once been his own command chair, now surrounded by human officers who treated him with surprising courtesy. His hands were not bound. His weapons had been politely requested rather than forcibly taken, and the humans had even brought him something they called coffee while they worked to stabilize his damaged ship. The bitter drink was actually quite pleasant, though Kexthor was too stunned to fully appreciate it. Around him, human technicians worked alongside his own crew to repair systems that had been disabled during the brief battle. The cooperation was so natural that it seemed like they had been working together for years. "Admiral Kexthor," Admiral Chen said as she entered the command center. She moved with the confidence of someone completely comfortable in what had been enemy territory just minutes ago. "I hope you're feeling better. Our medical team tells me you have a mild concussion from when your gravity systems malfunctioned." Kexthor touched the bandage on his forehead, where a human medic had treated his injury. "I am well enough. Admiral Chen, I must ask you something that I do not understand. Of course. Why are you being kind to us? We came to conquer your world. We threatened to destroy your cities. By all military logic, you should treat us as enemies. Admiral Chen sat down in a chair across from him, her expression thoughtful. That's a fair question, Admiral. The answer is complicated, but I'll try to explain. She gestured toward the main screen, which now showed Earth in all its beauty. Tell me, what do you know about human history? We studied your wars, Kexthor replied. Your species fights constantly. You have had thousands of conflicts throughout your recorded history. That's true. But did you study what happened after those wars? Kexthor frowned. After? The winner takes control of the loser's territory. That is how war works, and sometimes yes. But humans learned something important over the centuries. We discovered that turning enemies into friends is more powerful than simply defeating them. Chen touched a control, and the screen showed images from Earth's history. After our Second World War, we helped rebuild the nations we had fought against. Former enemies became our strongest allies. The images showed humans working together to rebuild cities, share technology, and create new partnerships. It was unlike anything Kexthor had seen in his studies of galactic civilizations. We learned that conquest creates resentment, Chen continued. But cooperation creates loyalty. A willing partner is infinitely more valuable than a conquered slave. But you have been preparing for our invasion, Kexthor said. You knew we were coming, how? Admiral Chen smiled, and this time it was not the professional smile of a military officer. It was the pleased expression of someone about to reveal a well-kept secret. Admiral, do you remember the 17 worlds your people conquered over the past millennium? Of course. They are all productive members of the Zephyrian Empire now. Are they? Chen touched her control again, and the screen filled with star charts showing those 17 worlds. But the information displayed was not what Kexthor expected to see. We've been in contact with all of them for the past 40 years, Chen explained. It turns out that conquered peoples are very interested in talking to someone who might be able to help them become free again. Kexthor stared at the display in shock. The 17 worlds that formed the foundation of the Zephyrian Empire had been secretly communicating with Earth for decades. That is impossible. We monitor all communications from those worlds. You monitor the communications you know about, but every species develops its own ways of hiding messages from occupiers. The Kelvani on Rigel 7 hide data in their music. The Thoraxians on Epsilon Cygni embed messages in their agricultural reports. The crystalline beings on Altair Prime use quantum resonance patterns that your technology reads as natural phenomena. The revelation hit Kexthor like a physical blow. The 17 worlds that the Zephyrians believed they controlled had been working against them for decades. Worse, they had been working with humans who were far more advanced than anyone had realized. How long have you been planning this? He asked. Which part? The defense of Earth? About 30 years. The liberation of the 17 worlds? We've been working on that for 40 years. The establishment of a galactic communication network that bypasses Zephyrian surveillance? Nearly 50 years. Commander Veltar, who had been listening from across the command center, spoke up. 50 years. But we have been watching you for 100 years. We would have detected such activities. Admiral Chen turned to look at her. Commander, what exactly did you see when you watched us? Your wars, your military exercises, your weapon tests, your space launches, all of which were carefully staged for your benefit, Chen replied. We've known about your observation posts since we first detected them 30 years ago. Every military parade you watched, every weapon test you observed, every space launch you monitored, all of it was theater designed to make you think we were primitive. Kexthor felt sick. You mean everything we observed was fake? Not fake. Deliberately limited. We do have the weapons and technology you observed. We just also have much more advanced systems that we kept hidden. Chen stood up and walked to the main display. For example, you watched us launch chemical rockets to reach orbit. What you didn't see was that we've had fusion-powered spacecraft for 60 years. The screen showed images of sleek human vessels that looked nothing like the crude rockets the Zephyrians had observed. These ships moved with the fluid grace of advanced technology, clearly capable of interstellar travel. You watched our soldiers training with kinetic weapons. Chen continued. But you never saw the energy weapons we developed decades ago. You observed our early computer systems, but we hid our artificial intelligence networks that are far beyond anything you possess. But why? Kexthor asked. Why hide your advancement? Why allow us to think you were primitive? Because, Admiral, we learned something very important about galactic civilizations. Advanced species tend to do one of two things when they discover a primitive world. They either try to conquer it or they try to protect it. We didn't want either response. Chen returned to her seat and leaned forward. We wanted to be left alone to develop at our own pace. We wanted time to explore the galaxy quietly, to make contact with other species on our own terms, to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than fear or pity. The 17 worlds, Commander Veltar said slowly, they have been helping you this entire time. Not helping us, Chen corrected. Working with us. There's a difference. We created a partnership where everyone benefits equally. The Kelvani shared their understanding of quantum harmonics. The Thoraxians taught us about biological engineering. The crystalline beings helped us develop new forms of computation. Kexthor realized the full scope of what had happened. You created an alliance. A secret alliance that spans the galaxy. The beginning of one, yes. And Admiral, we'd like to invite the Zephyrian people to join it. The words took a moment to register. Join it, but we invaded you. We threatened your people. Yes, you did. But you also showed restraint. You could have begun by destroying our cities, but you chose to demand surrender first. You could have killed our boarding parties, but you accepted our medical aid. That tells us something important about Zephyrian character. Admiral Chen stood again and extended her hand in a human gesture of friendship. Admiral Kexthor, on behalf of the Galactic Cooperation Network. I formally invite the Zephyrian Empire to abandon conquest as a policy and join us as equal partners in a new kind of interstellar community. Kexthor stared at the offered hand, his mind racing. Everything he had believed about human primitiveness, about Zephyrian superiority, about the nature of galactic civilization itself, had been turned upside down in the space of 12 minutes. What about the 17 worlds? What about our empire? They will be free to choose their own governments, Chen said simply. Some may choose to maintain relationships with Zephyros Prime. Others may prefer independence. But the choice will be theirs to make. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kexthor faced a decision that would change everything. He could continue fighting a war he could not win, or he could accept that perhaps there was a better way for civilizations to interact. He reached out and grasped Admiral Chen's hand. 6 months after what the humans called the 12-minute war, Admiral Kexthor stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the first truly interspecies space station ever built. Through the massive transparent walls, he could see ships from dozens of different civilizations working together to construct something that had never existed before. A symbol of cooperation instead of conquest. The station itself was a marvel of combined engineering. Human fusion technology provided clean energy. Kelvani quantum harmonics enabled instant communication across vast distances. Thoraxian biological systems maintained perfect life support. And Zephyrian construction expertise had shaped it all into a structure that could house thousands of beings from different worlds. Kexthor still wore his Zephyrian uniform, but now it carried new insignia marking him as a liaison officer in the Galactic Cooperation Network. The transition had not been easy. Many of his own people had struggled to accept that their empire was ending, that conquest was being replaced by partnership. Admiral, a familiar voice said behind him. Admiral Chen approached, carrying 2 cups of that bitter drink humans were so fond of. How are the latest integration reports? Kexthor accepted the coffee gratefully. Over the months, he had developed a taste for the human beverage. Better than expected. The 14th world voted yesterday to join the network as an independent member. That leaves only 3 worlds still deciding. And Zephyros Prime? The Council of Elders is still debating. Change comes slowly to my people. Kexthor sipped his coffee and watched a Thoraxian transport dock with the station. But I believe they will make the right choice eventually. The past 6 months had been the most remarkable period in galactic history. The 17 worlds that had been under Zephyrian control were now free to choose their own futures. Some had chosen complete independence. Others had formed regional alliances with neighboring systems. Several had asked to maintain trade relationships with Zephyros Prime, but as equals rather than subjects. Most surprisingly, not a single world had chosen to seek revenge against the Zephyrians. The network's philosophy of turning enemies into friends seemed to work even with species that had suffered under occupation for generations. "The humans are remarkable," Kexthor said, voicing a thought he had been having more and more often. "Your people have created something that no one believed was possible." Admiral Chen smiled. "We didn't create it alone. Every species in the network contributed something essential. The Kelvani provided the theoretical framework for non-hierarchical government. The Thoraxians showed us how different biological systems can work together. The crystalline beings taught us patience with long-term planning. And what did humans contribute? The belief that it was possible at all," Chen replied. "Sometimes that's the hardest part." Kexthor nodded, understanding more than he had 6 months ago. "On Zephyros Prime we have a saying, 'The strong rule, the weak serve.' It has guided our civilization for thousands of years. And now? Now I think we were only half right. The strong do have a responsibility to lead, but perhaps true strength means lifting others up rather than holding them down." A chime sounded through the station, announcing an incoming message. The nearest communication screen activated, showing the face of Commander Veltar. She was still aboard the Dominion's Edge, which had been converted into a mobile hospital and education center for worlds transitioning into the network. "Admiral Kexthor," she reported, "we have just received confirmation from the Andorian Confederation. They wish to open diplomatic relations with the network." Kexthor raised his eyebrows in surprise. The Andorians were a powerful civilization from the far side of the galaxy, known for their isolationist policies. "That would bring our membership to 47 systems. 48, actually," Admiral Chen corrected. "We received word this morning that the Silicon Collective has voted to join as well." The growth of the network had been faster than anyone expected. Word was spreading throughout the galaxy about a new way for civilizations to interact. Species that had never trusted each other were finding common ground through human-mediated diplomatic processes. "There is something else," Veltar continued from the screen. "High Chancellor Kekamori has requested a personal meeting with you, Admiral. She is prepared to travel to Unity Station." Kexthor nearly dropped his coffee cup. The supreme leader of the Zephyrian Empire had not left the homeworld in over 50 years. For her to come to a human-built station was unprecedented. "Did she say why?" he asked. "She wishes to see this human miracle for herself, as she put it." Admiral Chen looked intrigued. "Will she come as an observer or as a potential member?" "Unknown," Veltar replied. "But Admiral, there have been changes on Zephyros Prime. The younger generation is very interested in the network. They have been studying human culture and technology through the educational programs we broadcast. Many of them believe that joining the network would benefit our people." After Veltar signed off, Kexthor and Chen walked through the station's central corridor. The space was filled with beings from different worlds, working together, eating together, sharing knowledge and stories. It was something Kexthor would never have believed possible a year ago. They passed a group of young Zephyrian engineers working with human technicians to design a new type of faster-than-light communication system. Nearby, Kelvani musicians were performing with Thoraxian artists, creating beautiful hybrid music that incorporated elements from both cultures. "Admiral Chen," Kexthor said as they reached his quarters, "I must ask you something that has been troubling me." "What is it?" "Why did your people choose to reveal yourselves when you did? You could have remained hidden for decades more. You could have continued to appear primitive while building your secret alliances. Why take the risk of confronting us directly?" Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. "Because hiding forever wasn't sustainable. Eventually, someone would have discovered our true capabilities. When that happened, the revelation would have been seen as a betrayal by the species we were trying to help. So you chose honesty. We chose trust. We decided to trust that even a militaristic empire like yours could change when presented with a better alternative." Kexthor thought about this as he prepared for sleep in his quarters aboard the station. 6 months ago, he had been the admiral of a conquest fleet, convinced that military might was the only way to bring order to the galaxy. Now he was a diplomat, working to build bridges between species that had been enemies for generations. The transformation had not been easy. There had been difficult conversations with his own crew, heated debates with military commanders on Zephyros Prime, and moments when he wondered if the humans were somehow manipulating him with advanced psychological techniques. But as time passed, He had seen the practical benefits of the network's approach. Former enemies were becoming trading partners. Resources were being shared efficiently across multiple systems. Scientific discoveries were being distributed freely, accelerating technological advancement for everyone. Most importantly, the constant fear that had dominated galactic politics for centuries was beginning to fade. When civilizations trusted each other, they could focus their energy on exploration, creativity, and improvement instead of weapons and defense. A gentle chime indicated an incoming personal message. Kexthor activated his private communicator and saw the face of his youngest son, Zarketh, calling from Zephyros Prime. "Father," the young Zephyrian said excitedly, "I have wonderful news. The Academy has accepted my application to study human diplomatic methods. I will be able to join you at Unity Station next month." Kexthor smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. "That is excellent news, my son. You will find much to learn here. Father, is it true what they say, that humans turned their greatest enemies into their closest friends?" "It is true," Kexthor replied. "And perhaps if we are wise enough to learn from them, we can do the same." As he ended the call and prepared for sleep, Admiral Kexthor reflected on the irony of his situation. He had come to Earth as a conqueror and found himself conquered not by superior weapons, but by superior ideas. The humans had defeated the Zephyrian Empire not by destroying it, but by offering it something better. Outside his window, the lights of Unity Station twinkled like stars, each one representing a different species working together toward a common goal. For the first time in his life, Admiral Kexthor looked toward the future not with the anticipation of conquest, but with the hope of discovery. The age of empire was ending. The age of cooperation had begun.